Imagine building an ideal partnership where one side supplies a sea of black gold, and the other shares blueprints for missiles and the secrets of nuclear physics. That was the honeymoon between the Soviet Union and the Shah of Iran back in the 60s. Reza Pahlavi, a man with Napoleon's ambitions and a taste for lavish parties, didn't look north and see a threat. He saw a giant tech supermarket. Moscow, meanwhile, saw Tehran as a solid buffer, a way to keep American appetites in check right at the doorstep of the Caucasus. It seemed like a match made in geopolitical heaven. Pipelines were laid, engineers shook hands, and factories in Isfahan sprouted up like mushrooms after rain. But there was rust forming on this idyllic picture. The Shah was a fierce modernist, dreaming of turning his country into a Western-style showcase where women wore miniskirts and religion quietly faded away in dusty libraries. The old guard in the Kremlin, though atheistic to the core, secretly feared such a sharp pivot toward a capitalist paradise. Back in Iran, resentment was boiling among those left behind by this progress. Conservatives, the poor, and the clergy, for whom the Shah's reforms smelled like a betrayal of their faith and national spirit. The point of no return came in 1979. The Islamic Revolution shed the monarchy like an old leather jacket, and Ayatollah Khomeini stepped onto the stage. The rhetoric shifted overnight. The USSR went from a strategic partner to the lesser Satan, encroaching on the purity of the Islamic State. It turned out that shared borders and petrodollars mean nothing when pragmatism is replaced by a fanatical ideological storm. Yesterday's allies suddenly realized their worlds weren't just different, they were fundamentally incompatible. Tehran began actively supporting the Afghan Mujahideen, which came as a cold shower for Moscow in the middle of the war in Afghanistan. How did yesterday's buyers of Soviet machinery turn into the fiercest critics of Marxism? The answer is simple. Geopolitics often loses the battle against religious ecstasy. When belief in the exclusivity of one's path enters the picture, the logic of deals goes straight into the trash. The friendship of nations that had been built so carefully for decades crumbled into dust the moment the scenery changed in the Shah's palace. Now, all that's left of the old partnership is a wall of distrust that can't be breached by contracts or diplomatic visits. History proved once again that even the strongest bridges burn if you light a bonfire of ideology underneath them instead of rational calculation. We witnessed how a single ideological spark could turn years of cooperation into ruins, leaving us to wonder if long-term trust is even possible in a world where everyone considers their own truth the only one that matters. The darkness. It was a lesson the world learned at a massive price, forever changing the map of regional alliances and the balance of power for decades to come. Imagine you want to settle a score with your neighbor, but instead of using your own fists, you just drop a couple of angry dogs in his mailbox while you peacefully sip tea, watching the chaos unfold on your security cameras. That's roughly what modern geopolitical kung fu looks like, where great powers prefer not to get their own hands dirty, delegating the nasty work to professional middlemen. Iran has turned this strategy into an art form, making proxy wars the primary tool of its influence. 95. Tehran doesn't officially declare war on Israel. Why ruin your diplomatic image when you have Hezbollah, Hamas, or the Houthis in Yemen? It's the perfect war-by-subscription model. You pay for the logistics, the weapons, and the ideological training. And the proxies decide when to pull the trigger. This setup lets Iran stay in the shadows, formally saving face and avoiding a direct clash with a technologically superior opponent. The whole secret lies in masterful logistics. Secret routes through Syria and Iraq become invisible arteries for missiles, drones, and explosive components. It's like a pizza delivery service, only instead of pepperoni, the couriers drop off high-precision guidance systems capable of paralyzing an entire region. The Houthis, who control the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, have become a sort of free bonus to this system, holding global trade hostage to their ambitions. They shut down shipping lanes, creating economic pressure that hits the world's wallet, all while Iran smiles enigmatically from behind the curtain. Israel is trapped. It's forced to fight shadows that constantly change their shape, location, and tactics. 95. Striking back at proxy forces is like fighting a hydra, where you cut off one head, two more sprout up, fueled by that same Iranian resource. In this game, there's no room for open fronts. Shadow logistics rule the day, along with the skill of handing off initiative to those who have nothing to lose. But what happens if the supply chain breaks? Or the proxy armies decide they're being used as disposable assets? That question remains the ace in the hole, keeping the entire Middle East balanced on a knife edge between controlled chaos and an all-out regional firestorm that could burn any diplomatic agreement to a crisp. While the world debates sanctions and resolutions, the real war is being fought in dark corridors, where a single truckload of spare parts becomes more important than a speech at the United Nations. You still think wars start with newspaper announcements? Today, they start with the quiet hum of an engine somewhere in the desert, carrying a load that will change the world map by morning. Imagine you're playing poker. The stakes are the existence of entire nations, and instead of chips on the table, you're betting with uranium enrichment centrifuges. The Iranian nuclear program isn't just a boring set of physics formulas. It's the most expensive high-stakes geopolitical bluff of the last few decades. Tehran claims their ambitions are purely peaceful, that they just need electricity for tea kettles and factories, but in Jerusalem, they view that fairy tale as an attempt to light a fuse while sitting on a powder keg. For the Israeli leadership, every percentage point of uranium enrichment isn't just a number in an IAEA report. It's the ticking of a timer, counting down to the moment diplomacy turns to ash. The math here is simple and chillingly cynical. If your neighbor gets a club with a nuclear tip, your own security instantly shifts into a disaster readiness mode. Iranian engineers, hiding their labs deep beneath the rocks of Fordow, play a game of cat and mouse with international inspectors, turning the control process into a surreal ballet. In this dance, Tehran uses its nuclear status as a shield to ignore sanctions, while Israel sees it as an existential debt. The logic of deterrence here works on the principle of a mad tea party, where each participant is convinced the other is about to flip the table. 95. Is this atomic project just a tool to raise the stakes in a regional game? Or is it a one-way ticket to a global redrawing of the map? Israeli strategists don't believe in coincidences and prefer preemptive measures, believing that waiting for a red line is a luxury they cannot afford. Because in this game, the loser loses everything, and the winner only gets the right to watch the ruins. While politicians trade angry speeches, physicists in underground bunkers are busy cranking centrifuges, turning isotopes into arguments capable of crossing out any peace treaty. It's an equation with a dozen unknowns, where the only constant is fear raised to the absolute power. And while some hope for a miracle, others are prepping a scenario where diplomatic protocol is replaced by the roar of air power. The only question is who decides first that the time for negotiation has run out and hits the button. Turning a theoretical threat into a historical reality you can't hide from in any bunker on Earth. Have you ever wondered what happens if someone decides to strike a match in a room full of gasoline just to see how fast the fire? Alarm goes off? 95. That's exactly what the Middle East looks like right now, where the shadow game of who blinks first has escalated into a direct exchange of blows. Recent ballistic missile strikes and massive drone attacks aren't just backroom whispers between intelligence agencies anymore. They're a thunderous declaration that the era of proxy conflicts is coming to an end. Now, the players have stepped onto center stage, and each one is holding a heavy argument capable of turning regional tension into a global wildfire. The situation has reached a boiling point where old-school diplomacy feels like trying to stop a tsunami with an umbrella. Air defense systems have stepped in as the main characters of this high-stress thriller. This isn't just hardware anymore. It's high-tech chess, where every intercepted shell costs a fortune, and everyone that gets through puts the fragile balance of power at risk. We're watching modern air defense systems push to their limits, trying to filter a lethal stream of metal through a sky that's grown crowded with ambition. But here's the irony. The more advanced our protection gets, the greater the temptation to test its limits. 95. This creates a dangerous feedback loop where diplomacy takes a backseat to the calculations of mathematicians and the precision of algorithms. Is there any chance this dance on a razor's edge won't end in disaster? The answer is hidden in backrooms where politicians are trying to find red lines that were erased long ago. While engineers frantically update their radar software, diplomats are playing a zero-sum poker game where the stakes are the stability of entire states. Imagine you're balancing on a rolling ball while trying to solve advanced calculus equations. Every wrong move, every misread radar signal could trigger a chain reaction that no peace conference can stop. We've become trapped by our own progress. Our technology has become so powerful that any communication error costs too much. Can cold calculation and the fear of mutual annihilation keep the world from the brink? Or will our habit of playing with fire lead us to a finale where there are no winners left? The real intrigue is that this game has no pause button, and time is working against those who spend too long thinking about their next move.